Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Experience Communities webinar. Today's topic is inside the MVP program and trying to figure out what exactly that is. And hopefully, we have some of our MVPs on call today so they can answer some of the questions I'm going to pose to them. But before we get into that, what is the Digital Experience Community? So, it's a community which is free, so you can join for free. It's where all professionals from the digital experience world, whether you're a developer, technologist, you're a strategist, marketer, customer experience, user experience, it doesn't matter what that is. If you are part of the digital experience that you provide to a customer or to your own company, you could be part of this community and share ideas, ask questions, things like that. um, Matt just joined, so I'm going to add Matt in. So that's the digital experience community. Now you talk about what is the MVP program. So MVP stands for most valuable professionals. And like, again, just like the community, we want to highlight or showcase a few of the people in this community who are either developers, technologists, strategists, you name it, in the digital experience world, who've gone beyond their regular job to educate others, to help others, to further the digital experience world, right? By doing things. So that's the digital experience MVP. Um, because sorry for talking so much, but I do have to go through a couple before I start asking these guys questions. So a lot of people ask, what do I need to have to become an MVP? And again, I don't want to be repetitive, but I'm going to be repetitive, which is you need to be someone. You don't have to be a developer. It's a misnotion that you have to be technical or a developer to be a digital experience MVP. You don't. You could be a technologist, you could be a marketer, a CX professional. Basically, you need to have one of three things. Either you're technical and you're helping build the solutions, or you're customer centric, like a CX or a UX professional, or a marketer, and you're helping them make beautiful sites or digital experiences that are helping with business or revenue growth, and also have a community aspect to it, which is, are you sharing the information that you are gaining in terms of knowledge? How are you helping others? So those are the traits. um, I'll take the first question. I'll ask one of you. So I guess, Roll, since you joined first, the question for you is, what types of contributions do you need to make in order to be considered to be part of the MVP program?
I don't think there's a specific set of contributions that you need to make. Like, you don't need to blog in order to be applicable for the MVP program. What I would do is I would focus on what you could actually contribute, whether it's constantly commenting on existing posts that others have put out there, or joining a webinar. It's what's within your power to engage, involve, react, and respond to existing conversations.
That makes
That's
sense.
yeah,
Yeah. So it could be, it doesn't have to be a specific media. It can be podcasts, it could be videos, it could be not even content you're generating. Like Roll said, you could be on Stack Overflow, you could be helping on LinkedIn. So the next question,
Yeah, I want to add a little bit on this one, right?
oh,
Like again,
absolutely. Go ahead.
it's not like as you also mentioning, right? It's not the content you create; it's the value what it provides for the user, right? Like whether even if it is a command, if it is helping somebody to solve their problem, right? Like that adds more value than whether it's in the whatever the format it is. It doesn't matter. Like add some value to the user who's reading them. That's more critical and more important.
agreed. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. So the next question is, what makes so Satish, since you chimed up, you're gonna go next. What makes this MVP program unique compared to some of the others in like the other tech spaces?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question, right? Like particularly, like a like so. I will talk from myself, right? Like I started my career with Electron, then moved into Sitecore, and the recent days, like I'm more focusing on some of the new areas in my organization, like a Drupal, Archia, Contentful, Optimizely, and all the stuff. So I like a lot of time this MVP programs, what is outside of this DXP MVP, it's more platform specific, right? Like I don't want to particularly, like, it may be good to be a platform specific MVP when you are starting your career, like when you are when you get started in the career. But when you move into an architect, when you move into a technology leaders, right? Like it's critical. I don't want you to stamp with one technology, one platform. I want you to spread wide across like multiple areas, and that's when like I saw this DXP MVP, like which is like still I am in the digital experience world, but uh, the this recognition is much better than getting a site. I don't want to name any platform, but getting a platform specific MVP. This is like gives you a wider perspective, wider people to network with, wider audience to get the perspective of each of the every platform in the world. So I feel like that's much different than other platform specific MVP options we have.
Yep, I
Yeah,
think
if I can chime in, the other aspect of this DX MVP is that it is really not selected by a particular company or is not coming from a platform. It is selected by people, right? And if people feel like you are helping the community, they will vote for you, and that's actually, I think, much fair recognition, fair way to select someone. Like they don't have any intention to project something, promote something, right? They just go and see. This guy actually helped me sometime, and I see him contributing, and I see him helping me through his content and whatever he is doing for the community. So I think that's piece is very important.
And I think to Satish's point as well, we're in this marketplace that is less about individual platforms and more about an ecosystem, composable, dare I say mock, but where all of these solutions kind of have to work together in service of the customer. And I think this community really found its place at the intersection of that pivot in the industry. And so it's really neat to, I mean, I was really just applying last year because Akshay asked me to. I didn't think anything was really going to happen. And I was very, as probably most of us were, very pleasantly surprised when we found ourselves in this position. But it was a really nice affirmation of an attempt to kind of bring all of these disparate entities that are supposed to come together in this composable world and really come together and have, one of the things that, I don't know if you spoke about it, I was a little late because of traffic, but we have these MVP kind of meetings every other week? Yeah. And I've never been a part of such interesting industry-wide insider conversations, because usually it is about one platform, and there's nothing wrong with those platforms at all. But usually it's about one. It's so cool to get kind of a vast sense of what's happening overall. And I think that then helps itself in how we talk about the industry when we're creating the content and when we're talking to our customers.
Yep, makes sense. Just again, keeping tabs of things. There's a QR code at the bottom, so that'll take you to the DX MVP 2024 page, and you can apply or nominate for it. There's like 3 phases before I ask the next question. So there's 3 phases really. We have the application and nomination phase, where you basically apply to it, put in your information. It's asking you for what kind of contributions you've done. That ends November 8th. And then after that, there's a public election. And this alludes to what Himadri was saying, which is this isn't a firm deciding who gets an MVP or not. Basically, you have people from the community and the industry. You might have a friend who's not part of the community, but they're more than happy to, they can join and vote for you. And this is a public election where everyone votes for you. We take a subset of that, and then there's a private election. So say there's 50 people, they get all the votes. We pick the top 30%, say 15 or so, and those people will vote for each other than themselves, and that's what determines the top list of MVPs. Anyways, coming back to it, and the next question is, what advice? Who are we gonna pick? Let's pick Matt. What advice do you have for those who have applied before but didn't get selected? How can they improve their chances this year?
I think that's an interesting question because it. I think you don't want to go about your year trying to be an MVP of any situation. Like, I mean, maybe if you're a professional baseball player, you want to try, but what goes into being an MVP is what you put in every day and kind of what your output is from that naturally, regardless of an MVP. So I think try to create value every day. And even if you miss that, you're going to create a lot of value. It can be a conversation with somebody. It can be picking someone up. It could be content. It could be a podcast. It can be a video hit. It could be connecting with somebody. Just do those things because they're going to be good for your career and your business anyway. And then let everything kind of fall, let the chips fall. And then at the end of the year, submit, and you're going to have a lot of things. But don't go for it, but do the things that you would do that would be good anyway, right? That serve all of those purposes, business, personal, and DX MVPs.
Yeah, I mean, MVP should always be a byproduct of the work that you do. Like Matt said, it should not be your goal, but your goal should be just sharing, learning, and evangelizing the platforms or the things that you're learning, and it comes by itself. Himadri, question for you. So, what are the common mistakes or misconceptions applicants make when applying for the MVP program?
Good question. I wouldn't know everything about that, but I I I would think that, like as Matt said, that you really don't try for becoming MVP. You just, like you should be honest and you should just contribute as you go, and also, it's not that something you have to do for the MVP is something that you are interested in, right? I mean, basically, you, the way I look at it, I have to learn a new technology, and I start looking into it. I write blog, whatever I learn. So it's a normal, natural process for me, and I just go and share with it. So mistake I have seen, I have to write certain number of blogs, right? I mean, it doesn't matter unless the content of the blog is actually really useful to people. And when I'm saying, content of the blog or video or something that you are putting there, is not the length of the blog also. As Satish said, you put something that actually help other people to solve their problem, and it can be half a page content. And I remember, when I look at my blog statistics, the one that comes to the top is actually a troubleshoot I did, and that was for a configuration, I found that solved my problem. It's just half a page blog, and there are so many hits to that because a lot of people actually face that problem. So I think it's not number, it's not length, it's not volume. It's honestly what you are putting there. And also, MVP is not certification or anything. It's actually recognition because you are sharing your knowledge and you are recognized by your peers, right? So honesty and honestly sharing things is what get you there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a point to add there, right? So I was asking a couple of my colleagues, right? Hey, participate in this program. And their answer is like, oh, I know only this specific platform. I'm not well versed in the DXP. That's a common misconception, I feel, right? Like you don't need to know everything in the DXP. If you are contributing in any specific areas where you are an expert, you are, as long as you are helping the community, uh, you can apply, and the people will vote for you. Like whoever taken advantage of your articles or your webinars, whatnot, right? Like they will be voting for you. So you don't need to be a veteran of all the DXP. Even if you have some knowledge, if you are contributing to the MVP, to the community, apply for this one.
Yeah, I agree. Just trust in the stuff that you do know and don't focus too much on ongoing posts or discussions on a specific topic that you know less about. That doesn't make you less of an expert within your field, and it doesn't mean that you can't contribute. On the contrary, each and every one of us has specific knowledge and experience that contributes, right? So focus on what you do know and push that towards the community, and then you're adding value. It's as simple as that. Don't question what you know, just show what you know, and that's it.
I think one of the neat things too with this community, back to what we've all been saying, but you can start to explore new things where if you're applying to a single vendor MVP program, sometimes your heart might not be in it. Your company might not be as focused on that platform as it was in the past, and you feel like you're kind of checking a box at times. In this, you can really explore whichever avenue of the industry you'd like and potentially get some credit for that in the form of contributions.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed, I think, with any MVP program is the imposter syndrome. Am I good enough for this? And a lot of people go through it saying, I don't really know if I'm good enough for this. Even when someone's telling them, I think you should apply for it because you do this, 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 and they're like, I don't know if I'm good enough. So let other people judge that, but I would just say put in the application, share all the contributions, and I think that would speak for itself in terms of what it is. um, what's the next question? So I think, Matt, you mentioned something about the meeting that we have, which I completely forget, because we do have the meeting, we do get on, whoever's available jumps on it, and we end up having really, really good conversations. But what I didn't realize is we do kind of get a global scale of the things that are happening, because each of you guys are in different sized organizations across the world, and you do a bunch of different stacks. And it's kind of neat to know not just the technology trends, but also the business trends. Hey, business is getting slower here in this region, but it's picking up in that region. I never thought of that. Is there any other, like, what's the advantage to being an MVP, a DX MVP?
You want me to take that?
Yes, please, sir.
Oh, okay. So the meetings. No, I'm just kidding. The I think there's a connection. You know, I mean, even a handful of us were at the Sitecore Symposium, and I had to get on the plane, but several, I think four took a picture together, and that was really cool. It's like kind of like a traveling alumni group. It's smaller as well, right? I happen to be an MVP in Sitecore. I think Rolls in Kenneco. Several of us have other ones. It's really cool to be in those. Those are big. This is really, this is a small, tight knit group, and the calls are great. The ability to connect with several of these folks who I might have tangentially knew is real. You know, we will always be the inaugural group, whether we go on or not. But I think the value that comes from connection and community, and just the fact that the way it was voted and being transparent, it was kind of cool to be like, okay, this is a group of people who were voted by their peers in an agnostic way for our industry. And it created a little bit of a tight knit aspect that I know we'll be able to carry when we see each other in person or virtually.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know, like, how much it helps with your, like, job hunting or anything. I didn't see that, but like, in the professional world, like, several times last year or so after my DX MVP, and I am like, site code MVP also, in a meeting or with a business, like, when I have been introduced, like, oh, okay, he is actually a DX MVP, which is like, covers all different kinds of CMS and DXP platform. And I think that lies actually, that when you are introduced like that, people feel like, yeah, this person has certain amount of experience and recognized by the peers. So I think that definitely helps in the professional world. Will you make money more, or will you get a better job? I mean, that's I think not what we strive for, like, for this MVP thing, right? I mean, that's not the goal, but definitely helped me professionally.
yeah. Yeah, I think like you need to ask that question to all Akshay, like aside like the whatever the money you pay us, right? Like that's outside of it, but the community, right? Like the community, again community, right? Like for example, we were discussing, like I was telling you, like, hey, can we create a, webinar related to AI, right? Like with my limited knowledge, I said like, hey, can we do something very specific to customer experience? And the amount of people you brought in, right, like the all the experts and all these people, right, like that's where the power lies, right, like the you we were able to bring in, like, so you brought in few people, Matt brought in few people, right, like so that's that's super critical. That's the value of the community, is the value, right, like for being an MVP.
Yeah, and for me as a also Ketico MVP, it's kind of an affirmation that I know stuff in a vendor agnostic atmosphere, right? I know stuff when it comes to Ketico and all of the marketing stuff and how to set up amazing customer journeys using that specific platform. And it's also fine and really nice to get a confirmation that that knowledge can be transferred into, I don't know, any other vendor environment. So that's for me, that's an added value of this specific program.
Makes sense. Paula, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, just yeah, I was about to add a point here. It's more independence of speech, I would say, because it's vendor agnostic. I can talk more freely and then discuss about like how other platforms do in that area, or it's a wider spectrum, like people from different, like Kentaco, Royal is there, and there are other MVPs. So it's easier to talk through and different platforms. It's more vendor agnostic. I'm not restricted to what to talk and what not to talk. That gives a lot of freedom for me to discuss openly, freely with others to get some thoughts.
Makes sense. Anything else you guys want to tell our viewers who are watching, guys?
No, I felt like, um, the being an MVP, the you come closer to the community. Actually, I have, like, a lot of younger people, like, reached out to me and like, um discuss things that specifically technology, um and like, I always enjoy talking about technology with younger generation. So that's something I feel like, when you are an MVP, you you get closer to people. So,
Makes sense. And again, the QR code is at the bottom, and then digitalexperience.community is the website. if you want to apply or nominate, it's really, really simple. It'll take you less than 10 minutes to get the form submitted. Please go ahead and do that. Hopefully, you can join the community as well, and hopefully, it'll help you guys out. Any last word, guys?
Yeah, whether again, like if you feel like you are not ready still after all this conversation, if you feel like you are not ready for an MVP nomination, just join the community, right? Like participate, attend these events, and eventually, like next year, you can be ready. So take the first step.
Yeah, and I think find the random channel, which I just found today. There's a lot of action in there, a lot of good TV shows, but also I think try to be active in the Slack community. I mean, I think overall we're feeling that the industry is in a little bit of a tougher time right now overall from everything you hear, and I think sometimes you can feel like down about that a little bit, but speaking out and continuing to share your knowledge and connect with others can be a very powerful thing. So I'm seeing that in a lot of Slack channels, by the way. So be a little more active in general if you can. You got a community there ready to talk. I know actually you've said there's a lot of private messages that happen, which is great.
Yeah.
I think if we can bring some more of those into the channels themselves, and even if you don't have a post, but just to engage with it, to comment, give the flying parrot thing, whatever it takes. I think we can always use more discussion and conversation in general, and that's a really good place, agnostically, not connected to specific technologies, to do that. So, and if not, go to the random channel at least.
Yeah. And that's actually a really good point. Like, I think it's like 85% of the conversations happen in direct messages on the community. And that speaks for a lot. There's a lot of professionals who are super smart, much smarter than I'll ever be, but talking about all kinds of cool stuff. But we have a question from Sean. Let me just show. And Matt, you could probably answer to this because you're part of this group. Is how often are you discussing trends that marketers are working on? I listen to marketing podcasts, and data engineering seems to be a hot topic for marketing teams, but I don't see this being discussed much in the circles I'm in.
Okay, and then he also says, I guess what I mean is, how much does the DX group try to drive conversations about MarTech versus marketing operations? That's very interesting. Sean is a very active person in most communities he's in. We did a good podcast or a good webinar yesterday on Kenico. I would say, I don't know that we have been talking about that a lot, but Sean, I think we should.
Don't you guys have a group, you, Anis?
The Marcom.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yes, there is the Marcom Exchange in there, which is kind of an offshoot community that has meetings bi-weekly, I believe, and they're kind of housing themselves within the DX community. That is a really good channel, actually. Good point. There's a lot of interesting marketing things going on there. There's marketing professionals who aren't fully in like the tech spheres we're in. So yeah, do that. But I would say as well, we all should drive those conversations and kick them off. If there's channels to start, we can always do it. But yeah, good point, Akshay. Marcom Exchange.
Yeah. And get into that, Sean. I think you'll be a really good addition to that, since you're very broad. That'll really, really help. But yeah, all of us should be doing a better job of having public conversations and not private ones, which are useful to others.
As a marketer, I would say not enough, probably. Not by choice, but we see a lot of conversations being sparked on a very specific topic, and then that turns into a thread and goes on. I would actually like to see topics like this be featured more often. And I know as an MVP, I have a opportunity and an obligation, maybe even, to drive these kind of topics more. They're closer to my chest than maybe some of yours, but to Sean's point, I would really like to see these kind of topics be more driven within the community. And I'll definitely take my part in doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do
Yeah.
want to point out that sometimes topics come up and it ends up in a pretty long thread, and that ends up into like either like a round table or a webinar kind of thing on the DX community. So it has helped in the past. It's just it takes the right type of people to initiate the conversation as well as nurture it, right? You can't just throw it in and walk away. You have to like nurture that conversation. But point well taken, Sean.
Yeah, I think it will certainly help me. Like, I've seen, like, coming from a technology background, sometimes it's difficult to actually, like, talk with marketer in the same language, and basically have that kind of discussion will, like, help me, or other people, like, how technology should actually, um, like, talk with in marketing, uh, maybe language, or, like, how you should approach different things from the marketer's perspective, so that you can communicate things properly, right? And I always feel that I lack that trait, because uh, I always focus on the technical side of things, and it's just sometimes becomes difficult, right?
Makes sense. All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. I know, Roll, it's really, really late for you, but thank you so much for joining. Hopefully,
Very welcome.
this was useful to everyone, and we'll try to recirculate this video and hopefully get some more people to join. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thank you.
taking care of this, actually.